Open this door, or I will have every one of you turned out into the street by morning." The man who said it was not loud. That was the first thing I noticed, standing 2 paces behind Corporal Hale at the great banquet door of Harrowmere Hall. The loud ones I could read at a glance. They spent themselves quickly, and the night ate their noise. This one spoke the way a man speaks when he has never once in his life been told no, and he expected the door to open simply because his voice had touched it. It did not open. Hale did not move. And I, Sergeant Wren of the Household Guard, felt the whole long evening tip on its edge, the way a coin stands a half-second before it falls one way or the other. Let me set the ground, because the ground was everything that night. Harrowmere Hall belongs to the House of Allard, a fictional house, an old one, the kind that holds a state banquet twice a year and lets the rest of the calendar pass in dust sheets and silence. The Michaelmas banquet was the larger of the two. 300 guests, every one of them on a printed list that had been checked, sealed, and reprinted 4 times by the controller's office. The list was the spine of the night. The master of the household lived and died by it. And the door we held, the tall double door of carved oak at the head of the marble stair, was the one place in all of Harrowmere where the list became real, where a name on paper turned into a man permitted to walk into the presence of the sovereign of the house. That door was Hale's post. I was his relief and his second, posted 3 paces back along the gallery wall, eyes forward the way we are taught. We wore the full dress of the household, the scarlet wool tunic, the brass buttons polished to a small fire, the white gloves, the tall black bearskin that makes a tall man taller and turns a man's stillness into a kind of wall. We carried our rifles at the slope. We did not speak to guests. We did not, as a rule, speak at all. The whole craft of us is to be furniture that cannot be moved. The man at the door wore evening dress that cost more than my year's pay, and a signet ring he turned on his finger as he waited, around and around, a small, impatient machine. Behind him, the marble stair fell away in a river of light, the chandeliers, the murmur of 300 voices, the clink of glass, the small string ensemble somewhere doing its patient work. He had come up out of all that brightness and stopped at our door like a tide hitting a sea wall. "I said open it," he repeated, still quiet. "Do you understand me? I am expected." Hale answered him the way we are trained to answer. He did not. He looked at the point above the man's shoulder where we are taught to fix our eyes, and he held the door. I want to be fair about how this began, because the man, I learned his name later, but I will call him the visitor, because that is all he ever truly was to us, did not arrive as a brawler. He arrived as a man correcting an error. In his mind, plainly, there had been a clerical mistake. He was a person of consequence. Persons of consequence were inside. Therefore the door was a misunderstanding, and the misunderstanding would resolve itself the moment the right people grasped who he was. His first threat was not even meant as a threat. It was meant as information. Open the door or face the consequences a man like me can bring. To him, it was as ordinary as telling you the time. The first crack in his calm came from the understeward. Mr. Penhallow was a small, neat man of perhaps 60, the controller's deputy, and it was his job that night to stand a little to the side of the door with the sealed list in a leather folder and confirm each arriving name. He had been doing it for 30 years. He stepped forward now, the folder open, his finger already running the columns. "Your name, sir, if you please," Penhallow said. "I'll find you directly." "You will not need to find me," the visitor said. "I am the guest of the Marchioness. She invited me herself last spring in this very house. Now stand aside and let me by." Penhallow's finger stopped. I watched it stop. He went down the A's again, slowly, then up through the column a second time, the way a man does when he already knows the answer and is being kind enough to let the other man hope. "I'm sorry, sir," he said. "There's no name like that on the list, and I've no note of a late addition." He closed the folder a careful inch. "If the Marchioness invited you, the controller's office will have a record." I can send a boy to ask. It will take a few minutes only. A few minutes. The visitor said it as though the words were an insult, and perhaps to him they were. You want me to stand at a door like a tradesman while you send a asterisk boy asterisk. Do you know how that looks? Do you know who is watching? He turned his head just slightly, and I understood then that he had not come up the stair alone in his own mind. He had come up it with an audience, the guests below, the consequence of being seen to be turned back, the unbearable arithmetic of his own importance subtracted in public. The threat hardened in his throat the way water hardens to ice. He stepped close to Penhallow, close enough that the old man had to tip his chin up. I'll tell you what will happen, the visitor said, very low and very clear. You will open that door now on your own judgment like a sensible man, or tomorrow I will make certain you never hold a folder in this house or any other. I know the people who decide such things. You don't. That is the whole of the difference between us. Now, open it. And there it was, the threat, laid down plain on the marble, the way a man lays down a card he is sure of. Penhallow's hand tightened on the folder. He was brave, that small man, but he was 60 and tired, and he had 30 years to lose, and I saw the cost of holding move across his face like weather. That was when Hale spoke. 4 words low level, the rifle never leaving the slope. The list stands, sir. The visitor looked at Hale as though a piece of the furniture had cleared its throat. For a moment I do not think he understood that the wall had a voice. Then the understanding arrived, and with it the first real anger, not the performed impatience of before, but the hot thing underneath it. You, he said softly, you don't get to say what stands. On this door, sir, I do, Hale said. Step back, please, you're crowding the steward. I have served beside Tom Hale for 6 years. I have stood relief for him through 2 state funerals, a coronation procession, and 1 bitter February when a man tried to climb the forecourt rail with a lit flare. I had never once heard him raise his voice, and he did not raise it now. But I felt the gallery change behind me, felt the 2 footmen near the service arch go still, felt Penhallow draw a half-step back into the shelter of Hale's shoulder without being told. We are taught that the post is not a man. The post is a line, and the man is only the thing the line is wearing tonight. The visitor had just tried to lean his whole weight on that line, and the line had not given by the width of a thread. He drew a slow breath. He looked from Hale to me to Penhallow to the door, and I watched him decide that since the wall would not move, he would go over it. He would go and find someone, anyone, with the rank to open the door from the other side. He turned on his heel and went back down 2 steps, into the light. And the night, which had been standing on its edge, began to fall. He did not go far. A man like the visitor does not need to walk a great distance to find the lever he is looking for. He need only find the nearest hand that holds rank, and a state banquet is full of hands. He found his lever in the person of Mr. Carow, the deputy master of the household, who came up the stair at the visitor's elbow within 5 minutes, dabbing his mouth with a napkin he had forgotten to set down, looking like a man who has been pulled from his dinner by someone he cannot afford to offend. I knew Carow a little. He was an able man at the things he was good at, the seating of guests, the order of the courses, the 1,000 soft frictions of a great house, and he was not good at all at being told, in a low and certain voice, that a powerful man had been humiliated at his door. He arrived already half persuaded that we had blundered. Sergeant, Corporal. Carow's eyes went to the door and to us, and I saw him calculating. What's the trouble here? This gentleman tells me he's been kept standing a quarter of an hour. 8 minutes, sir, Penhallow said quietly, before Hale could answer. And the trouble is only that his name isn't on the list, and we've no record of a late addition. I've sent young Davies to the controller's office to be certain. He'll be back directly. He's a guest of the Marchioness, Carow said, as if that settled it, and to be fair to him he half believed it did. Surely we can, there's no sense making a scene over a clerical thing. Let the gentleman through, and we'll square the paperwork after. There it was, the soft, reasonable voice that asks you to let the line bend just this once, for everyone's comfort, with the promise that it will be put right later. It is the most dangerous voice there is, far more dangerous than the threat, because the threat asks you to be afraid, and the reasonable voice asks you to be kind. We are trained against both, but only one of them makes you feel like the villain for refusing. Hale did not answer. It was not his place to argue with the deputy master, and he knew it. He looked at me. Just a flick of the eyes, no more, but I am his second, and the post was about to become a question of rank, and rank between us is mine. So I stepped up level with the door, and I said it low, the way Hale had. Sir, with respect, the door doesn't open on a promise to square it later. If we let him through now and his name's not in the controller's book, then we've opened the sovereign's door on nothing but a stranger's say-so in front of 300 people, on the one night the list is the only thing standing between the dais and the dark. I can't do that, sir, and I'd ask you not to order it. Give Davies his 4 minutes. Caro's face went through 3 colors. He was a proud man, and I had, in front of the visitor, declined to obey him. But I had also handed him something, and I think a part of him was clever enough to catch it mid-air. I had given him 4 minutes, and the cover of "Let us simply be certain." A man who wants to avoid a decision will take certainty over courage every time. He took it. 4 minutes, he said, turning to the visitor with an apologetic spread of his hands. You understand the office, the records, will have it confirmed in a moment, and then of course. I will not stand here while a footman riffles a ledger. The visitor's voice had dropped the silk entirely now. Caro, look at me. You know what I am. You know what I can do for this house and what I can do to it. I am not asking you to check asterisk anything. I am asking you to remember which side of the door your bread is buttered on, and to tell these two ornaments, to step aside. And he put his hand flat on the oak, beside Hale's shoulder, and pushed. It was not a violent push. He was not trying to break the door. He was trying to demonstrate that it was asterisk is asterisk to push, to make the touching of it ordinary, to walk his hand across the line as if the line were already gone. The door did not give, because Hale's weight was against it, and Hale weighs 16 stone in his stockings and had set his boot. But the visitor's white-knuckled hand on the carved oak, in the full light of the chandeliers, was a thing 200 faces below could see, and they saw it. I heard the murmur change. You learn to hear it, the way a crowd's noise turns over, the way a low sound goes through it when something is suddenly worth watching. Phones came up here and there along the gallery rail. The string ensemble played on, unbothered, while the room beneath it discovered there was a better show at the top of the stair. Take your hand off the door, sir, Hale said, still level, still no louder. I won't ask twice. Or what? The visitor leaned in, and his voice was almost gentle now, almost amused, the cruelest register a powerful man owns. You'll shoot me, on the Marchioness's marble in front of her guests. You'll lay one white glove on me and end your little career and this old fool's pension and Caro's too. No, you'll do what you all do. You'll stand there and let me through, because that is the only thing the likes of you are asterisk for asterisk. To stand, to hold the coat, to open the door for your betters. He took his hand from the oak, not because he was told, but because he had finished with it, and he reached past Hale for the great brass handle. That is the moment people ask me about after. They want to know what I felt, whether I was afraid, whether my hand went to my rifle. I will tell you the truth. I felt nothing dramatic at all. I felt the post. The post is not a feeling. It is a fact you have agreed to be. His hand was on the handle, and my training laid the next 3 seconds out in front of me as plain as a corridor. The soft block, the wrist turned out, the body interposed, no strike, no spectacle, the door held by the simple, immovable fact of a man who has decided not to move. I began to step. I did not have to. Because Penhallow, small, 60, 30 years of folders, the man with the most to lose and the least armor, stepped between the visitor and the handle first. "Sir," he said, and his voice shook and he held it level anyway, "you will not. There is no name. I will not be threatened off my list, and I will not be the man who tells the controller I let the door open on a fright. Do what you must to me tomorrow. Tonight the list stands." And the wall, which had been 1 man and then 2, was 3. I do not think the visitor had reckoned on 3. He had reckoned on a frightened steward and a pair of ornaments and a soft deputy master, and instead he had a line, a real one, made of 3 spines that would not bend, and below him 200 faces watching to see what the powerful man would do when the door did not care who he was. His hand left the handle, and the night, which had been falling, found a new floor and kept on falling, because at that exact moment, young Davies came up the stair 2 at a time with the controller's ledger under his arm, and his face told the whole story before he opened his mouth. "He's not in the book, Mr. Penhallow." Davies was out of breath and frightened of the company he'd run into and honest the way young men are before the world teaches them otherwise. "I checked the master list and the late editions and the Marchioness's personal invitations both. He's not in any of them," he swallowed. "But there's a name asterisk near it. A guest who asterisk was asterisk invited and sent regrets a fortnight ago. The names are close. The controller thinks." "The controller thinks nothing," the visitor cut in, and he had seized on the word asterisk near asterisk the way a drowning man seizes a rope. "There, you hear it. A clerical error. The names are asterisk close asterisk. Some clerk transposed a letter, and on the strength of a transposed letter you have humiliated me in front of half the county. The invitation was real. It was extended to me by the Marchioness in this house. Your own ledger admits the name is there. Now, I have been patient past all bearing. Open the door." And here, I will be honest, was the worst moment of the whole night, worse than the threat, worse than the hand on the door. Because for the first time the visitor was not simply lying. There was a near name in the book. There was a regret sent a fortnight ago. The water had gone muddy, and in muddy water the reasonable voice grows strong, and Caro, poor Caro, who had wanted only to get back to his dinner, heard the word asterisk error and asterisk transposed, and the name is there, and visibly began to fold. "Well," Caro said, "if there's a name asterisk near asterisk it, if there's been a clerical confusion, then surely, Sergeant, the prudent thing—" "No, sir." I said it before he could finish, because I knew where Prudent was going, and Prudent was going to open the door. "A near name is not the name. A regret sent a fortnight ago is a guest who told this house he was not coming. If a clerk's error has happened, sir, then a clerk's error is exactly the thing the list exists to catch. The list isn't a guess at who ought to be inside. It's the record of who this house decided asterisk to admit. I won't open the sovereign's door on a name that sent its regrets and a face that won't give a name to match." I turned just my head to the visitor. "Sir, give Mr. Penhallow your name, your true and full name. If it's the near name in the book, the controller will confirm you in 2 minutes and you'll have my apology and the door both. If you won't give your name, then you've told us everything we need to know." It was a small thing to ask. It was the smallest thing in the world. A man with a real invitation gives his name gladly. It is his key. And the visitor, the powerful, patient, certain visitor, did not give it. He did something else. He laughed, a short, ugly sound with no humor in it, and he reached into his breast pocket and brought out a phone, and he held it up so we could all see the screen, and he made a single call. "You want to play at protocol," he said while it rang. "Very well, I'll show you protocol. I'll show you what a real name in this kingdom sounds like." The call connected. He turned half away and his voice changed, warm now, intimate, the voice of a man speaking to someone who would never make him stand at a door. "It's me. I'm at Harrowmere. Yes, the Michaelmas thing. I'm being kept on the step like a delivery by a steward and 2 toy soldiers who can't find my name in their little book. No. No, I want you to call the master of the household directly and have this asterisk resolved asterisk. Tonight, while I'm standing here, I want them to watch the door open." A pause. a smile that did not reach his eyes. "Thank you, I'll wait." He lowered the phone and looked at us with the calm of a man who has just played the only card that has ever needed playing. "In about 90 seconds, he said, "the master of the household, the man your deputy master answers to, the man who answers only to the Marchioness herself, is going to receive a telephone call from a person whose name even asterisk you would recognize. And he is going to come up these stairs, and he is going to open this door himself. And then, Sergeant, I am going to stand here while you explain to him why you decided, on your own small authority, that you knew the guest list better than the house that wrote it." He slid the phone back into his pocket. "Enjoy your last quarter hour in that uniform." I will not pretend my heart was steady. Caro had gone the color of the marble. Penhallow's knuckles were white on the folder. Davies looked as though he wished the stair would swallow him. The crowd below had thickened at the foot of the steps, faces turned up, phones up, the murmur risen to a low C. And somewhere down a corridor, a telephone was about to ring on the desk of the most powerful man in the household, and the question of whether our line held was about to leave our three spines entirely and pass into the hands of the chain of command above us. That is the thing the visitor understood, and understood perfectly. He had stopped trying to push through the wall. He had sent for someone to dismantle it from behind. Hale shifted his weight, the first time he'd moved in 20 minutes, and set his boot fresh against the base of the door. "Whoever comes up those stairs, Sergeant," he murmured, "just for me. The door's still mine until they relieve me of it properly." A telephone call doesn't relieve a post. "No," I said, "it doesn't." But I felt the cold truth under it. If the master of the household came up that stair and ordered the door open, then it would open, not by us perhaps, but it would open, and Penhallow would lose his folder and his 30 years, and the list would be shown to mean nothing the moment a powerful enough man dialed a powerful enough number. The post would hold. The system above the post might not. The telephone, somewhere below, began to ring. We did not hear it, of course. It was 3 rooms away, on a desk in the steward's wing. But we heard the result of it, 4 minutes later, in the particular silence that comes over a great house when the most senior man in it begins to walk. The master of the household was a tall, spare man named Lord Aldous Varon, the Marchioness's chamberlain, the keeper of the whole machine, a man I had served under for years and spoken perhaps 40 words to in all that time. He came up the stair without hurry. He did not look like a man rushing to put right an outrage. He looked like a man taking the measure of a room, which is exactly what he was. And the crowd, which had been a sea of noise, drew its breath and went quiet, because they knew him, and they knew that whatever was going to happen would happen now. The visitor straightened. The silk came back into his manner all at once, the way it does in men who keep 2 faces and choose between them. "Varon," he said warmly, stepping toward him with a hand out. "Thank God. I'm terribly sorry to drag you from the table. There's been the most absurd mix-up at your door." "There's been no mix-up." Varon did not take the hand. He said it pleasantly, even gently, and it landed in the middle of the marble like a dropped stone. "Sergeant Wren, report." I reported. I kept it short, the way he likes things, the name not on the list. The regret sent a fortnight ago by the near name. The request for the gentleman's full name, 3 times asked and 3 times refused. The hand on the door. The telephone call he had made in front of us, threatening to have the door opened over our heads. I did not editorialize, and I did not soften it. Penhallow added the one thing I had left out, that young Davies had checked the master list, the late additions, and the Marchioness's personal invitations, all 3, and found nothing. And Varon listened to the small steward with exactly the same grave attention he had given me, which is a thing I have never forgotten about the man. Then he turned to the visitor. "I have just taken a telephone call," Varon said, "from a person of considerable influence asking me to come up here and open this door myself. It was made very clear to me that there would be consequences for the house, and for me if I did not." He let that sit a moment. "I want you to understand that I heard it. I am not pretending the call didn't happen, or that the man who made it can't do what he says. He very likely can." He paused, "and the answer is no." The visitor's face did a remarkable thing. It did not understand. It simply could not assemble the words into a shape that made sense, because in the whole architecture of his life, there had never been a structure in which a man received that call and said asterisk, no asterisk. "You Varen, you can't be serious. Do you know who?" "I know precisely who," Varen said. "That is rather the point. Let me explain to you how this house works, because I don't believe anyone ever has." He clasped his hands behind his back, and he spoke not only to the visitor but, I understood, to the 200 faces below, and to the footmen, and to us, and to the whole listening house, the way a man speaks when he means a thing to be remembered. The Marchioness sets the list. The controller records the list. Mr. Penhallow guards the list at the door, and the household guard guards Mr. Penhallow, and I answer to the Marchioness for all of it. That is the chain. Every link in it can be leaned on. Every one of us can be threatened, the steward with his pension, the controller with his post, the guardsmen with their commissions, and me, tonight, with a telephone call from a name you are very proud of. The whole purpose of the chain is that the leaning has to break asterisk every asterisk link before the door opens. Tonight you have leaned on all of them, and not one has given. Do you understand what that means? It means the system worked. It means the list is real. A list that opens for the right telephone call is not a list. It is a suggestion. And the House of Allard does not run its door on suggestions. "This is asterisk insane asterisk," the visitor said, and the silk was gone for good now. "Over a name, over a clerk's transposed letter, you will throw away the goodwill of—" "If your name is the near name in the controller's book," Varen said, "then give it. Your full and true name here now to Mr. Penhallow. If you are the guest who was invited and sent regrets, we will confirm it in 3 minutes. The Marchioness will be told her guest reconsidered, and you will go in to dinner with my apology for the delay and a better seat than you deserve." He tilted his head. "You have been asked for your name perhaps 4 times tonight, by a steward, by 2 guardsmen, and now by me. A guest gives his name. Give it. And for the 5th time in front of Lord Varen, in front of the whole risen house, the visitor would not. Because, and we learned this in the days after, though I think Varen already smelled it on the stair, the visitor was not the near name in the book at all. He had not been invited and had not sent regrets. He had learned that a guest of similar name had declined, and he had built his whole assault on that crack. A real near name to wave, a real invitation to someone else to point at, a powerful friend to dial, and the iron certainty that no door in the kingdom would hold against the 3 of those together. He had not come to correct a clerical error. He had come to walk through one. The seat he meant to take had never been his. It belonged to a man who had politely said he could not come, and the visitor had decided that an empty chair with a half-matching name was as good as an invitation, and that frightened men would not dare make him prove otherwise. He had been right about that everywhere else, I expect. He was wrong at our door. "You won't give your name," Varen said, "because the name won't survive the giving. We're done here." There was a sound from the crowd then, not a gasp, nothing so theatrical, but a low ripple of something I can only call agreement. And out of it a voice rose, an older woman's, clear and dry, from somewhere near the foot of the stair. "Quite right, Varen," she said. "I sat through a long dinner to be asterisk on asterisk that list. Throw the man out." A scatter of low laughter went with it, the kind that is not cruel but is final, the laughter of a room that has chosen its side. I have thought about that moment many times since. The visitor had come up the stair certain that the crowd was his weapon, that the shame of being seen turned away would force the door. But a crowd is not a weapon you can borrow. It belongs to whoever is plainly in the right, and the moment Varen made the list plain, the 200 faces below stopped being the visitor's leverage and became the house's witnesses. He had wanted them to watch the door open. They were going to watch it stay shut, and remember it, and that was worse for him than any pension he had threatened. For one breath I thought he might do something foolish, lunge for the handle, make a scene that would have to be answered with hands. I felt Hale read it too. I felt the small shift of weight beside me, the readiness that costs a trained man nothing to hold. But the visitor was not a fool, only a man who had never met a wall. He looked at the door, and at the three of us, and at the chamberlain, and at the risen, waiting house, and he understood at last that there was no lever left in the building that he had not already pulled, and that every one of them had come back in his hand. He turned his head unhurried. "Sergeant Wren, the gentleman is leaving. See him to the forecourt with every courtesy." "Mr. Caro," and here his voice cooled by exactly 1 degree, which from Varon is a winter, "you will return to the table, and you will not in this house again instruct a guardsman to open a door against the list. We will speak tomorrow. Mr. Penhallow." The voice warmed again. "Well held. Note the time and the particulars in the day-book. The controller will want them, and so will I." It was the strangest thing. Varon gave more weight in that sentence to the small steward's day-book than to the powerful man's telephone, and the house heard it. I felt the 200 faces below take it in, the lesson of it, the plain, unhurried fact of a great chamberlain telling a 60-year-old man with a folder well held in front of everyone, while the man who had threatened to ruin them all was shown the stairs. The visitor did not go quietly. They rarely do when the going is the one thing they cannot bargain. He told Varon he would remember this. He told the house it would regret it. He named at last, too late, and for the wrong reason, the powerful friend on the telephone, as though saying the name aloud would make the door reconsider. The name went down the stair and across the crowd and did exactly nothing, because a name is only a key to a door that has agreed to be opened by names, and ours had not. I walked him down myself, a pace behind and to the left, my white glove never once touching him, my voice level the whole way. "This way, sir. Mind the steps, sir. The forecourt's through the hall, sir. Every courtesy exactly as ordered. Courtesy is its own kind of wall. It gives a furious man nothing to push against." By the time we reached the great front doors, he had run out of threats and was simply walking, fast and stiff, the way a man walks when he can feel 200 pairs of eyes on his back and cannot turn to face a single one of them. I handed him to the forecourt watch, and the night air took him, and the carved doors closed, and that was the whole of it. There was a quiet sequel, the way there always is. In the days after, the controller's office traced the near name properly, the real guest, the genuine regret, the fortnight-old letter, and confirmed beyond any doubt that the visitor was not that man and had never been invited at all. A note went up the chain, and a quiet word went out to a handful of households that keep such words, and the visitor found, I am told, that an empty chair at one banquet had cost him his standing at a great many tables he had once been welcome at. The powerful friend on the telephone, when the particulars reached him, was not pleased to have been used as a battering ram against a guest list, and was less pleased still to learn the man had lied about an invitation to do it. The visitor had leaned on every link in the chain to open one door. The chain held, and then, in its own slow and unhurried way, it leaned back. Caro kept his post. Varon saw to that, too, in his fashion, a private dressing down, a lesson learned, no public ruin, because the chamberlain understood that a man who folds once under a clever pressure is not the same as a man who is rotten, and that the house needed Caro's 1,000 small competences more than it needed his head. But Caro never again, in my hearing, asked a guardsman to open a door on a promise to square it later. And Penhallow, small, 60, 30 years of folders, was the one the Marchioness sent for. I do not know what was said. I know only that he came back to the door the next banquet with the folder under his arm and stood his place exactly as before, and that when he passed me on the stair, he gave me the smallest nod, the kind that says we held, and I gave it back. People ask me after whether it frightened me, a man with that much power that close, with the means to make good on every word, and I tell them the truth, which is that the post is built precisely for the men with the power to make good on their words. Anyone can hold a door against a man who has nothing. The whole reason the door has a guard, and the guard has a steward, and the steward has a controller, and the controller has a chamberlain who will say no asterisk to a telephone call he is afraid of. The whole reason for the chain is the man who can ruin you and knows it, and is counting on your knowing it too. He counted on 3 frightened men and a soft deputy master. He found a line instead. And the line did not hold because we were brave, though Penhallow was. It held because no single one of us was ever meant to hold it alone, because a list is only as real as the last man who refuses to be the one who breaks it. And that night, from the door to the daybook to the chamberlain at the head of the stair, not one of us was willing to be that man. The seat he came for was never his. We only kept the chair empty for the man whose name was actually on the paper. Which is, when you strip away the marble and the chandeliers and the powerful voice on the telephone, the entire and unglamorous craft of standing a door. I went back to my post. The string ensemble was still playing. The list still stood. And somewhere below, 300 guests who were invited went in to their dinner, and never knew how close the whole quiet machine had come to opening for a stranger, or how plainly, and how well it had refused.